Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Brian, and this is Gerald. Gerald is a rooster. He's free range. He lives in my Japanese maple, and he keeps critters away from the hens around our place. Gerald and I have a unique background and a history together. Someday maybe I'll share that with you, but right now, like most of you, this past year's economy has been, well, let's just say interesting. And so I'm going to be making some Christmas presents for people in my family, some loved ones, my children. So we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But for right now, you guys have a good one, and Gerald and I are going to get to work. See you soon. On our property at Juniper Mountain. And when you're using traditionally milled or old school milled lumber, this is rough cut lumber, it's especially important that you really do a good job of taking off that first layer of rough surface. We're using a coarse grit sandpaper here, a 60 grit. When I say this was a tree that fell on our property, and we used an old school chainsaw mill method, using just an old ladder and chainsaw mill with a chainsaw like you probably have to mill this into lumber pieces. Of course, this is not going to give you the refined lumber that you would find at Lowe's or Home Depot, especially for somebody like me that's relatively new to this process. exterior to give the character of that rough cut on the bottom. I'll show you in the next board what that spraying process looks like, but it just looks like spray painting. I like this flat color, whether it's this color of black or another, because I'm going to come over it with a coat of polyurethane just like the rest of the project, and it just gives a nice finish. Your taste may vary, but this is something that I like to use. Again, coming over the project with hand sanding in between layers to kind of get a feel for where things are, again with that 100 grit sandpaper, and just kind of seeing how the project is progressing. Along the way. Just refining it a little bit more, and I'm going to cut out significant sections of this sanding. You get the idea. At this stage, we're ready to get into real finish sanding, so I'm going to come in and fill the cracks and knots and holes at this point with some wood putty. Sometimes I'll use resin for these projects, but in this case I'm using a wood putty because I'm going to use a white stain that this will take nicely. Process starts over again with each shelf. Of course, that process looks a little bit different with each shelf because each individual piece of wood has different character and characteristics. That's part of the fun of this kind of woodworking. No two pieces will ever be exactly the same, as no two sections of wood are exactly the same, and that's fun. But I won't bore you with the same process over and over again, but just know that we're going through those same processes until we get to the refining area of 240 grit, and then we're going to do stain, sand in between that sanding. So when we go up to 320 and 400, we'll sand between staining at some point. When you're putting this filler in, you want to be sure that when you're sanding the roughness back off, that you don't sand out the filler that you've got in. You want to come in lightly over and smooth it just as you want it so that it will still accept the stain that you're going to put in without undoing the work that you've done. So there's a little precision to that particular step in the process. There's a little trial and error involved to get it right, but you keep at it, you'll get it. I promise you will. If you work with chainsaw milling like I do, you'll have these grooves in the lumber that you're working with, the live edge that you're working with. You won't only come flat across with your palm sander. You'll want to work the edges of the palm sander on occasion to take some of that milling down from the chainsaw, some of the grooves down. You'll have to figure that out. I can't explain it to you. You'll notice here that I'm coming in at an angle and then going back to flat sanding. Be careful with that, but if you learn to do it correctly, you'll be able to expedite the process. Here you see me removing the paint from the original shelf, the antique shelf. It is a time-consuming process, but I like the end result. You can achieve a similar result by using a thin, more translucent white stain. I do that on occasion as well. It depends on exactly what I'm hoping to achieve. But I like this for this project, and I think you'll see why. a great time doing the same. You won't be able to see the end result of this, the unboxing, but I will follow up and show you the shelves mounted in my daughter's room. At the end of this video, you hear my kid's mom come in excited about something she's found for her oldest daughter. I hope you have a great holiday.
Found Gorilla.